Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me, I still have Professor Bola Akinterewa, Director General, Polytech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Professor Anthony Killer, Professor of Strategy and Development, and Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Well, profs,
good to be here.
We've taken two major topics. The World Cup starts today. It's on right now. The World Cup is finally here. And then we've been told that the world's population has reached the mark of 8 billion. And in Nigeria this year, we're 260 million. And by 2050, we will be the fourth most populous country in the world. We keep growing exponentially. Those two issues. Let me start with you, Professor Killer.
With me. Okay, so the World Cup, I think those who grew up, those who are growing up in the last 20 years or so, or just about 25 years, it would be odd for them not to see Nigeria in the World Cup because they're used to Nigeria participating. Those who grew up in the 70s and 80s will be used to not seeing Nigeria there. If one just get used to having Nigeria there, we tend to forget that for a long time it was a privilege reserved to a few African countries because we never qualified even when we had a chance. It's a shame Nigeria is not there, and I'm very happy that Michel Obi highlighted the financial loss, besides the visibility and the fun of participating. I think you asked him that there's a theory that because Nigeria is not there, will Nigerians follow? Sadly and happily, there's a paradox there. Nigerians will follow because it's a global sport. Nigerians will follow anyway because they follow the English league, not the Nigerian league, even when it's not a Nigerian game. But Nigerians will also follow, but as you said, Nigerians are there, about 7 people, people of Nigerian origin. The question is, shall we share in their glory? Can we share in their success? We can, because we like them, after all. We clap when Ronaldo scores as well. But the point is, when you look at those are the people of Nigeria. But when you look like the government and the corporation called Nigeria, that is where alarm bell starts to ring, because those people have grown outside Nigeria and are able to shine. The Nigerian system does not seem to be able to grow people who can shine and win and make Nigeria be proud of. So we can celebrate them by extension, but they're a global and international brand. One hopes that people get together to understand that football goes beyond the game. Sports goes beyond the game. A lot of people don't know. I heard Fantini saying FIFA is not United Nations. Well, actually, FIFA employs more people than United Nations. It employs more high-level people. As a matter of fact, FIFA is more influential than United Nations in terms of influence, not power, in terms of the ability to speak to the world. And I do hope that Nigerian leaders, both in government and outside government, understands the value, the capacity of sports, the moral, social, economical value of sports, and really tap into it. We should just wait to enjoy our games. The oldest person you were mentioning is about 40 years old now, I think. I remember Dino Zoff.
Talavera of Mexico.
The Italian goalkeeper, Dino Zoff, was in his mid-40s, I think about 46, when he led his country to win the World Cup in 1982. But times are changing, I guess. While everybody's getting older in real life and people remain in their chairs in universities for longer years, footballers are closing earlier. That's the indirect thing there. For the population thing, if you want us to take that now, I think, we have to look at it. I look at it from 3 dimensions. When they say the world is 8 billion people and Nigeria is going 200 million people, it's a bit like if you're looking at a convocation ceremony, and you say, wow, so many people are graduating. If your own child is not part of the people graduating, you don't feel there are too many graduates in Nigeria. So when we're looking at the number of people, you have to see women and men who are still hoping to have children. They do not feel this overpopulation because they're still looking for their own. I think the logic of saying let us limit our population is a very clear logic. It's hard to fight that. But there's another logic that we're not looking at, which it's a political economy thing. You cited Malthus. Well, let's look at supply side economics and let's see that when we talk about population in Nigeria, I'm very fascinated by the concept of population management rather than population control. Because in reality, Lagos is a good example and the rest of Nigeria is like that. We need to look at how we manage our population in terms of location of people, localization of industry, and positioning of activities. There are too many people coming to the island, to my view, where you see that kind of traffic. Actually, what we should be looking at is expanding our cities, decentralizing the nation, in which rather than everybody going to the same place, a lot of people are going to a few places, we need to start to deploy our services and our infrastructures outside the usual places, so that way we spread development. And by spreading development, we get a chance to employ the underemployed resources, in this case, human resources. When you travel across Nigeria, security has hampered now, but when I came back to Nigeria, I made a point to visit a new state every month across the country. And one of the things you see if you go across Nigeria is that you have vast portion of land that are underdeveloped, unused. It doesn't make sense. I argue that those kind of things, for example, there should be a law. You don't need to buy it, maybe lease it and use it for agriculture. We have a lot of space. We can create industrial centers that will take people away from the crowded parts. And I do also believe that it is possible without negating those who want us to reduce, not fertility. They can't control fertility. What they can control is number of children we make. Those who want to control population without negating their thing, I think we need to manage well what we have at the moment. We need to see how these apparent challenges can be turned to opportunities. I'm going to stop here to say one thing. If you look at a lot of our cities, for example, many of our roads, the main roads, were either constructed or designed around the 70s. And one thing fascinates me each time I go around. From the 70s to where we're today, the number of cars has increased like 10 times. But what do you see our agencies do, our government do? They keep reducing the road, either because they make flowers, pots, or they make some kind of bus stop there. And I keep saying to myself, we should be expanding. And the new roads we make, instead of doing it 2 lanes, then come back a decade or so later to now increase the lane, we should be thinking of having 6 lanes. The roads like the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and all the lanes across Nigeria, we should be thinking of wide, big things in a way that we imagine that we can go 10 times. I think population management is the answer, and it goes beyond restriction. Supply side is the answer for me.
Okay, Professor Kentenrawa, your take on this subject.
Let me begin with the issue of population. You did make a distinction between population management, population control. And you are on the same platform with Professor Kila and Dr. Ejike Oji. Left to me, I find it difficult to differentiate between the two, except from the perspective that Professor Kila has tried to explain directly that, look, if you do have a population and the government is now trying to provide to facilitate the population growth, providing infrastructure, having 6 lanes and so on and so forth, there may be a distinction between managing and controlling. When you control, that is an instrument of management.
Yes.
When you are managing any issue, any problem or problematic, a number of measures will be considered. So, and I see controlling as a measure, as one of the instruments of management. It is not possible when you are controlling. Controlling is also managing. So management is an instrument of control in that particular case. Shifolu Falaye, yesterday or today, I read in the newspapers when he recalled the time of the price control board in Nigeria, when, for instance, our government in Nigeria, they always engage in military approaches, using force, police, to get many things done. And Olufalaye is saying that one cannot be done in this type of democratic system. by that time when they were using force on cocoa, now what the smugglers were doing, they took our cocoa to Benin. A ton of cocoa used to cost 4,000 naira in Nigeria. But in Benin Republic, we does not plant any tree, any cocoa tree. No pod. Now, they were paying 20,000. So it was very convenient for the smugglers to bribe their way easily to Benin Republic. And Benin Republic suddenly became an exporter. But until the control boards were dissolved in Nigeria, now Benin could no longer become or operate as an exporter. This is just an example. You see, managing and controlling, conceptually, we will address that. Ejike Oji is my friend because the mere fact that he gave us, he recalled the issue of fertility. Now, he raised indirectly the position of God. Why the world is not at peace with itself, why Nigeria has become or has degenerated from being a problem to becoming a problematic, is as simple as that. Now, God says, continue to procreate.
Go ye and multiply.
Your head is very correct, quote and unquote. Now, in this case, I cannot see how people created by God will now be coming with policies. Ejike Ogi is talking about controlling, etc. He wants us to come and join him. Yes, we will come and join him, but not to say that, look, you are controlling all this. Because God says that he authorizes. Make yourself happier, and he will provide for that. The issue now is that when he told us that India, China, has a fertility rate of 2% or something like that, and that here in Nigeria, our own fertility rate is 5%.
5.3.
Now, you can now see that when God decided to create Nigeria, he created Nigeria, bountifully, graciously, etc. That is why when Nigerians are crying, smiling, they suffer, but they still smile. I think it was Fela who told us that. Smiling. Yes. Struggling and smiling. The making of the Nigerian is quite different from anyone. They thrive anywhere. I am saying that, look, if you like, you can deport a Nigeria from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from America today. The next month, he's going back. He's never tired. So, our own make is divinely done. Now, in moving to the other aspect, population, please, it is more of politics. More of politics. In France, I am saying this based on experience. When France needed immigrants, population, okay, they gave incentives. Yeah. If you succeed in impregnating your wife, they give, I think, 5 francs by that time. The mere fact that you succeed in impregnating, they gave you that one. When you deliver Social Security, they give you a lot of money. So people who do not have work by that time, one way of earning income is to find your wife or a woman to impregnate, and you collect money. Now you see. I
hope you are not recommending that for Nigeria.
No, for Nigeria.
I hope you are not recommending that.
I am not against recommending
Otherwise, there will be too many people on this.
No, you see, please, if they are talking about control of a population worldwide, it is simply because of this policy of social security. Yeah. People were coming, Algerians, Francophones were coming to France. Suddenly, the population was extending in an unexpected manner. And now when they now decided that, look, these people are now dominating the local population, they needed to control birth again. They were initially encouraging it. Now suddenly, they do not want to encourage it. In America, for instance, this issue of migrants, COVID-19, etc., the debate was so rich that people were afraid that, look, they want to control African growth because they manufacture, quote and unquote, children. All right? and they are married to 2, 3, 4 people. So an individual can have 10 children in 1 year, and they are now taking advantage of Social Security. And they now say, look, in the foreseeable year 2015, if you allow this one to continue, it will be a problem for taxpayers. So they don't want that. Now, you see, in terms of footballing, I think that we can look at it from 3 perspectives. Professor Killer said, you know, sports goes beyond just footballing, goes beyond games. I agree with him. The issue is this. Politically, politics of sports. If, for instance, Qatar took advantage of Nigeria's inability to play host to that one, why do you want me to see Qatar win? It's not possible. Politically, I would prefer Ecuador to win. Now, if, for instance, we are looking at Qatar playing host to this thing, investing, etc., all along, we can consider that factor and say, let Qatar win. But at the end of the day, when we look at how, for instance, footballing has been politicized right from the time FIFA was established in 1930, please note the name FIFA, Fédération Internationale of Football Association. So the first 2 was in French language, the other one in English language. If you go back to read the literature, you will easily agree with me. By that time, the first, you know, they say the day of the 5 billion, the day of the 6 billion,
yes.
The day of 7 billion, November 15, the day of 8 billion. Yeah. Go and look at the date. Interval of 11 years, averagely. All right? Yeah. They come with this particular date. But scholars, demographers have disagreed about this with about all these things. So when you look at it at the end of the day, why shouldn't Nigeria, for God's sake, sit down and provide leadership for the black people of the world? Okay. And there will be a source of inspiration.
Prof, okay, I agree with most of the things you said. On population control, it's good you looked at the political side of it. And the book that I think of as I sit here, you know, on the subject is Father George Usani's book, The Politics of Population Control, where he deals with different dimensions of some of the issues you have raised. But let's move on. The Senate has decided to approve the Central Bank of Nigeria's legislative efforts to redesign the 1,000 Naira, 500 Naira, and 200 Naira notes. After a contentious discussion on a motion introduced by Senator Obasani on the CBN's plan to redesign the 3 Naira notes, the upper chamber adopted the resolution. However, the majority of senators, regardless of party affiliation, backed the redesign of the Naira, but some of them expressed concern over the Apex Bank's deadline for the deposit of old notes in commercial banks. Well, I guess this is fairly straightforward. We discussed it before. We have the president backing the redesign of the notes. We have the chairman of the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, saying that, in fact, the redesign of the 3 denominations could result in a situation where Naira will probably be 200 Naira to the dollar. And, you know, now we have the Senate. The major contention on the floor of the Senate was the timing. They want it extended till April. They want politicians who have already stockpiled funds for the elections in February, March, to at least spend what they have, you know, before the government of Nigeria will redesign those 3 denominations. What do you think, Professor Akintero?
I think that we are living in a country where our leaders hardly think before taking decision, and when after an event they take decision, they don't even bother to remember, you know, to have lessons from the past. For as long as we do not always think profoundly before engaging in any event, we will be having this type of situation. Why am I saying it this way? We have been told that by regulation, redesigning the Naira, the currency, is supposed to be done every 8 years. And we have been told that in the past 20 years, nothing like that has been done, no redesigning. Why? When the law itself says every 8 years, the intention, the well-known intention is simply that, one, whoever might have had the intention to hoard the currency will have been prevented. Secondly, in the event you want to use redesigning as a means of controlling the valuation of the Naira, then that will have been met by redesigning. More importantly, for our politicians who, for instance, when in December, last December, the CBN governor said by so time there will be likelihood of redesigning the currency. The politicians already began to act. They were already buying, taking what they might have been holding to buy dollars. Now the issue is, in this case, why is it that a regulation says every 8 years redesign? You didn't do it. Question, why now? Second point, when the CBN governor, who cannot claim not to know the implications, why do you have to tell the public that you intend to redesign? You are indirectly telling the holders, those who are engaged in economic sabotage, to go and begin to change their money. Why wouldn't you take them by surprise in this case? So when people are now asking, for instance, an extension of date, why an extension of date? If the purpose is to either sanction or prevent those who are holding the currency for whatever purpose, I want to believe that, well, the policy in itself, the policy decision is a welcome development. It is good, it is consistent with the law, even if it is coming late. But the question I also ask, how do you prevent further hoarding? Because redesigning this time, in 2030, if you are going to redesign the currency again, how are you going to prevent hoarding of your new currency now? The bottom line there is that holistically, from the perspective of macroeconomics, we should address the challenges. So, not simply because presidential elections will be taking place in 2023, and you now want to, for whatever reason, sanction your opponents or sanction whoever. Because left to me, this is more of taking sanctionary measures against economic saboteurs.
Well, but Prof, isn't it the whole point that the CBN governor caught everyone by surprise? I thought that was part of the whole issue, because that policy announcement did not leak. Yeah. Even the Minister of Finance was caught by surprise. She didn't know about it.
It's a political party carrying card member.
Yes.
But hello?
CBN governor is carrying a political card member.
No, but the point we're making is that the policy was introduced, stealthily.
I understand you. Yeah. I agree with you in total. I'm only simply implying that, yes, caught people by surprise. Why? Is it not because he has partisan position?
No, that policy is not about partisanship.
Okay.
Yeah, but Professor Killer, your view.
Well, I mean, I am not persuaded by the ability of the redesign of the Naira to fight stockpiling of the Naira for two simple reasons, economic reasons. The Naira is not, with the instability of Naira, the Naira is not really money that you stockpile. If you have money, you tend to stockpile it in a stable currency like euro, like dollar, or the sterling. What you stockpile in Naira is the amount you can easily spend, you know, the spendable fee. It's not your capital, it's not your real asset. So I'm not really taken by that. My other reservation about the redesigning of the Naira is the cost of doing it now. I'm not sure the amount of money they will spend to redesign it is worth the new Naira itself. I have, you know, it's a contextual thing. But overall, I mean, if anybody sees those Naira notes, I think, would you have better one? I just hope now that they design it, they should make it something better that will last maybe longer or easy to clean. They tell me they clean it regularly. For me, for other countries I visit, our currency seems to be always very dirty. You know, it's a very bad thing. We should have a mentality of clean, crispy notes. And by the way, of all these things they're doing, there's one thing that worries me, which I would like the CBN governor to intervene. It is difficult to get money for Owambe parties, which is something that somebody should take very serious, because you never can get it from the bank, but for some reason, the people selling it to you at parties always have it. Those little things tells you there's something wrong.
But that's criminal.
It is criminal.
Those who sell Naira notes under the
Yes.
CBN Act, Section 12, Section 22, is an offense.
Well, it could be an offense, but the fact people are doing it, and it's also, and I don't believe, and here's the point, since you've raised it, let me be very clear about it. I do not believe that you fight selling of currency or hoarding of currency by legislature. It's a demand and supply thing, it's an economic thing. You don't want people to sell Naira notes, flood the ATMs with crispy Naira notes. Make sure it is there. Provide more ATM. And that takes me to where I'm going to. This idea of saying that there's not enough time, the people who've made a case, I don't think they're criminals. What they're saying, or maybe they are, but the official case they've made is that there's some rural areas that will not have enough time to be able to change their Naira. I say, rather than delaying the rest of us because of them, take banks to them. It is time you take bank, financial services, operators, kiosk, to do those things for them immediately. But of course, security is a problem. Let's see how it goes. I put a poll on Twitter some time ago saying, would they change the date or not? I think that was 2 days after the policy was announced.
Okay, let's take our final topic of the day. The former U.S. President, Donald Trump, has declared that he will run for the White House again in 2024. The 76-year-old, who still refuses to accept he lost the last election, said the goal was to deprive President Joe Biden of his second term. His announcement comes as some fellow Republicans blame him for the party's lackluster performance in last week's midterm elections. The Republicans are poised to take back control of the House of Representatives, but with a slim majority.
Make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. I will ensure that Joe Biden does not receive 4 more years in 2020. Can't do it. Our country could not take that. And I say that not in laughter. I say that in tears. Our country could not take 4 more years. It can only take so much. It's all very fragile to start off with. It can only take so much. In 2020, I received the largest number of votes of any sitting president in history by a lot. And we will do it again, but with even more votes this time. We do love our country, isn't it? That's why we're here. I didn't need this. I had a very nice, easy life. This is something I didn't need, and a lot of you people don't need either. But we love our country, and we have to take care of our country. We have to save our country. We will make America glorious again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, President Donald Trump there. He says he wants to make America great again. But if the results of the midterm elections are anything to go by, in Florida, for example, where Ron DeSantis has shown that he's a better alternative to Donald Trump, and the closeness of the race during the midterms, will he be given that opportunity? Is he dreaming? What does this mean? Professor Killer, let me start with you.
Well, let me make a confession. I'm delighted that Trump is coming back. because, and it's a very personal, selfish reason. I belong to a club of strategists, a Washington-based club, and 3 years ago we had our positions put forward, and there was a wager, there was a bet of $10,000 when I said Trump would definitely come back 3 years ago.
Oh, so you are $10,000 richer?
Yeah, I am $10,000 richer because
we should talk after the program.
I'm good. So I'm delighted that he's coming back, because there's a logic there. As long as he's alive, was my caveat, that he will come back. He will come back not because he cares so much of America, but because he's a narcissist and because he's very egocentric, because he believes the world rotates around him. But more importantly, he will come back because, and this is where those who follow my thoughts will understand my position here, because the party, the Republican Party, has not been able to stand up to him. They have allowed them because they're not sure how strong this populist influence he has. He's still strong in America, and they've allowed him to get on with it. Now, whatever happens, from the primaries to the general, Americans cannot say they don't know Trump. So quite frankly, when we embrace democracy, I think it's time we start to hold people accountable for their choices as well. So it's a matter of saying, it's not a new thing. You've seen him before. So there's no let's try and see. You know what it is. So you either go for him or not. As a party, and that's the primary, which I'm more interested in, because the people in the primaries are more informed than the general people. So the choice they make there, it goes a long way. And I think that's important to see. That's my take on Trump, very quickly.
Professor Quintero.
I differ considerably from the position of the $10,000 rich Professor Killer. You see, I think that Donald Trump is a very bad strategic thinker because he's unable to reconcile the fact that he has criminal allegations against him on the one hand. He lost elections scientifically, so clear. Now, you are the very first American president to have been impeached 2 times. Now, to the tail end of your administration, you encourage hooliganism. The supporters could go to the Capitol Hill. Now, you refuse to accept election results. You even want to overturn that. Now, there are many court cases against you. Now, the FBI even had a case against. They recovered the classified information from his club, from his house, from his hotel, different something. Yet you still have the effrontery to come out to say you want to make America great, that the whole world is yet to know the glorious situation in which the Americans are. Does it mean that the glory of America now consists, democracy now consists in engaging in criminal activities? My question is, Nigeria's foreign policy interest in terms of protection, will it be better under a Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And I will tell you that, look, when you are faced with very terrible devils, 2, 3, 4, 5, you must learn to take a better one. I think Donald Trump is a worst devil in this case. It's not good for our interest. I do not want him back. If you want him back, yes, probably you still want more dollars. But we don't want $1. No, bro. We want to protect. We will protect Africa Center.
I knew he was going to come back.
Except that we don't have a vote in the matter. We don't have a say in the matter. It's for the American people to decide what is best for them. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News.